the idea that it's all based in consistency, in showing up over the long term. Can you use that as a stepping stone into unpacking it a bit more for us as someone who's really looked into it?
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Sure, yeah. I think let's start there with the small steps. I think one of the big mistakes, again, I've made this mistake many times, particularly early on, and I see people making all the time, is through eagerness, they start voice training, and maybe they're getting a lesson, 30-minute lesson or 1-hour lesson once a week, once every 2 weeks, and they think, well, I'm going to practice the things that I did in that lesson, the 30 minutes or the 1 hour, I'm going to do it 5 or 6 days a week. And if you're starting without a practice habit at all, you've never had a singing practice habit, and then you try to jump right to that, for most people, again, motivation will help them maybe sustain it for 2-3 weeks, maybe a month or two if they're really driven. But if they haven't established, I guess, a habit that's more incremental, then likely as soon as life gets busy or motivation fades, that kind of falls apart. So James Clear, he states, there's a really good framework for thinking about the different things that you can do to establish and sustain a lasting practice habit. And I think one of the big picture things before getting into any of those kind of parts of the framework is that he talks about the fact that goals are excellent for setting direction, but systems and habits are essential for progress.
Yeah.
And so I think in our modern culture, we tend to focus on goals and results, and we're less focused on processes and building a lifestyle and the things that take more time and effort. So that's kind of the one things he talks about, is really establishing those habits. And then underlying that, he really emphasizes having clarity around a positive identity or mindset around who you are as a singer, and allowing that to be one of the drivers of maintaining and building a practice habit, so that you can reach your goals, but you're not solely relying on the motivation of the goal to keep your engine going.
Can we just for a moment talk about that identity point, because he does really make a point of that, certainly in the chapters that I've already read, about saying, for to be specific to us, I'm not a person who sings, I'm a singer, and he really drives that point home. And because I'm a singer, I behave accordingly. I'm not a person who has externalized this identity, but I'm actually owning it and grounding it. What did you take away from that aspect of what he has to say?
Yeah, well, again, as someone who for a long time, I was gigging professionally in my late teens, early 20s, and I didn't consider myself a singer. I considered myself a good musician and guitarist, but I wasn't a very good practicer. I performed a lot, but wasn't a good practicer. And so because I was comparing myself to those who were practicing and being more dedicated to their craft and technique and so on, I thought, well, I'm not really a singer because I'm not doing those things. So for me, I think when I started to consider myself a singer was in my mid-20s, and it was really, I was actually performing less, but I was more consistent with my practice, and my technical growth really started to move a lot faster. So I love what he says in the book about the idea that each time you go out to practice or do something that's part of your habit, whether it's performing or rehearsing or, it could be any aspect of that, each action that you take towards this identity is a vote that you're casting to reinforce that identity. So at first you might say, well, I'm a singer dedicated to the craft of singing, and yet if you're just starting out and you haven't practiced whatnot, you might feel like a bit of a fraud. Not the case. But it becomes, I think, easy to own that identity as you start to live it out. And then that identity, as it becomes stronger, again, acts as fuel for the habit, which then will help you to reach the goals that you set, but also it'll help you to build a system that ultimately will help you to achieve goals you haven't even yet set. So I think that's the key thing, is having a clarity around a positive identity for yourself.